Hello, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming to this month's Poem Jam. I'm John Smalley, a librarian with the Humanities Center here at the main library. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to acknowledge our community. On behalf of the public library, we wish to welcome you to the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land, and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as caretakers of this place. As guests, we who reside in their traditional homeland recognize that we benefit from living and working on their territory. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. For anyone who's here for the first time, I want to mention that our Poem Jam poetry reading series, facilitated by poet Kim Shuck, takes place on the second Thursday of each month, 6 p.m., usually in this very room. However, next month, February 13th, Poem Jam will be celebrating Iranian women. There'll also be an exhibit of Iranian quilts on the third floor, but the reading itself will take place on the fifth floor in the Learning Studio. So I hope you will come again next month to the fifth floor Learning Studio. You can learn more about programs by picking up a newsletter or flyer from the table on your right, where you'll also find coffee and cookies. You can help yourself to those, and there's some limited edition Poem Jam pins. So that's all I have for announcements. Without further ado, I want to turn the microphone over to San Francisco Poet Laureate Emerita, Kim Shuck. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hey folks, I've been looking forward to this particular pairing for a while, and I'm delighted. Our first reader is going to be Carla Schick, who I think we mostly met online on Zooms, but had a pretty long on Zoom kind of interaction before we actually met in person over in Berkeley at a I think it was a beast crawl where we finally met each other in person. She's a frequent participant in Right Now events with, Shizue Siegel. I was going to say something brilliant, but it escaped, which has been happening more and more frequently. No, I know. I think I'm in pretty good company. Without, as John likes to say, without further ado, please welcome to this microphone, Carla Schick.
Well, I do want to tie myself. I want to thank Kim, and I feel very honored to be reading with Yeva too, who I also met online through Nomadic Press, where we read for months and months and months, maybe years it seemed like. And so it's quite an honor to be here tonight reading. And I admire both Yeva's and Kim's writing so much. So the first poem I'm going to read has a longer title than maybe the poem itself, but and it's part of, in my mind, my future manuscript, even though my first manuscript hasn't become a book yet, a published book. So it's called When My Mother Didn't Notice I Was Stuck in Front of Photos of Trans Women at a New York Museum of Modern Art exhibit. My desire was to jump in before the flash exploded in my night eyes. My body bleeds into gray shadows. I feel as though I am wearing drag, a girl wearing a too tight jumper and a frilly cream-colored blouse. My mother drags me to another room. For her, we are witnessing art, not a moment of dissonance or disequilibrium. This is how I remember leaving my body quietly, shutting the door. I still hear the hinges creaking. I'm going to stay on the museum theme. I had a very complicated relationship with my mother, as many people do. But my mother was an artist, and because my father had to babysit, she took me to museums. So I spent a lot of time in museums, and that was a gift. And so the name of this poem, the title goes right into the poem. So it's, what is it you see, I want to ask my mother, as we stand together in a crowded museum, chilly with murmurs, with the clicks of passing feet. I look down and then up. Her brow, wrinkled with worry at home, now softens, while she studies bold strokes of paint. Orange sky, red, purple, blue, a tile bathroom. A woman who floats in a bath, face obscured, the light reflected off her belly, off her breasts. I want to see what my mother sees when she sways her hands as though holding a paintbrush, trying to make the vibrant colors hers, because she couldn't accept an art scholarship, because she had to go to work at 17, illustrating in pen and ink women's slim bodies pressed into wedding gowns. She painted at night, in off hours, trapped in summers of children screeching on Brooklyn streets below her window, and would never dare to paint a woman who lacks desperation, a woman unafraid to inhabit the body she has. She ponders, women unclothed, gazing out, and I learn to take in a body blending into a decorated wall as we stand side by side, wondering why we scatter our bodies in all the wrong directions, ungrounded, moving in scenes we didn't create. So I love doing ekphrastic poems too, and I never really liked Andy Warhol very much, but I went to his exhibit at the MoMA, and I learned a lot. And there was one painting where he called it Lavender Disaster, and it was little lavender electric chairs hanging, and it was about a commentary on the 50s. So this poem is based on that. And I wanted to say, I wasn't going to read this poem, but I'm reading it because I don't know if people know, but the Ethel Rosenberg's sons are trying to get a pardon for her. I think it's a pardon, something like that. And so because it's clear that she was totally framed and she had nothing to do with any kind of espionage. So I decided to read this poem. My grandmother marched to save the Rosenbergs, but I can't imagine her marching to save my queer body. After Lavender Disaster, Andy Warhol. Tiny electric chairs hung in lavender gloom, an etch-a-sketch of skeletal frames floating in our space, painted over. While New York cops banged down bar doors, cracked skulls, and perfect red lips lost among the meat packers and dingy ports at night. In a Times Square rally, those who were taunted as commies rose their fists into the air, while technicians at Sing Sing prison prepared pads to pour electric death shocks through their bodies. Incendiary sparks shot out of Ethel's head. Her two small boys ushered away in another car, slow motion movie picture frame, silent faces stare out the window. The hand of the executioner comes down and back up, a metronome. Lavender electric chairs, nooses around necks, guillotines, swords, crosses. A doctor's hands shake, inspecting state legal murder weapons, marking time's end. Ethel moved to kiss, not Julius, but the woman who walked her to the chair, a last breath, and this prison matron cried. While protesters gathered against the pressing June heat, victims of the un-American house of un-American activities. Like two men kissing in back rooms of a mafia-owned bar where a bouncer on the dance floor held a ruler, keeping partners 6 inches apart as the music stopped pulsing and the batons battered glass until heads shattered shelter. Two opposing parts of this vast New York City where communists fighting for their rights still refuse the twist of queer bodies. I, born into the strain, only one generation away from utter despair, where tiny electric chairs doused in lavender sent shockwaves through twirling bodies trying to free themselves from the lightning crack in an electrified sky. Next poem is actually dedicated to my father, and it also has a title which just goes into the poem. And if I ever have a book, this is the first poem of that book. I have always loved the ocean, shifting greens, tumbled seaweed blues, interlaced with my tiny toes, perched in warm sand, anticipations. He said I could be anything, my father swinging my body out over breaking waves. I wanted the moon. I wanted the flash of nightlights in an outfield where I could catch whatever came my way. I wanted to be someone's hero. I love the blues best. Billie Holiday said, I don't sing the blues she left to Bessie. But I heard and still hear her, a yearning in her voice every time we played her records. My father sang the blues, smoked his blues, drank his beer blues, sweated his factory blues, while he knew how to swing with Dizzy and Dinah, nights at 52nd Street bars. Gone, blues, gone, so I can never return the blues. My dad, who taught me boxball on pebbled cement, tipping my body over invisible borders of despair. I dreamt in blues, dressed in grays and black and navy blue, not the color you'd give your girl, baby blues. Punch a hole in the sky, my fist hitting that pink ball of grief until tears poured from the clouds, turning the sky into mystic grays, and still I was blue, until my body became wire and skeletal shades of bleached bones. All I lost, leaving behind words as stone trail markers, like a syntax that got my tongue tied up, chewing on the edge of an erasure where the voices in my body hummed and shined like a birthing star in a deep midnight sky. I never believed in angels until I could see the Milky Way, one still night, far from the city light, vast universe of sky and stars and distant moving planets, a dusty disk, a place to rest my heart, floating, taking me back to the way I love those turbulent ocean blues. I think I'm doing okay for time, right? Okay. So I'm going to read a couple of, I've been doing Palestinian solidarity work since the early 80s. And I was a part of a group called Jewish Women for a Secular Middle East. And someone once said there's something in that name to insult everyone. But as a part of that group, we also worked in a coalition to free a woman named Sahira Kamal, who was in Jerusalem, who was a teacher in Jerusalem and a leader in the PLO. And so when I was able to go to Palestine in 1985, we met with her because of our work here, and we went to Gaza. I was actually in Jabalia camp, and adopted a project to help support, through many international organizations, that the women's work committees decided they wanted to work on. So this next poem is based on that, and it's called What is Stolen, Jabalia, 1985. If I capture her photo, do I steal her outline? Even as she pulls me to the chipped green-walled room to carry a memory, recall her body, wrapped around her baby brothers? If I steal her shadows, is she shapeless, made into fog through another colonizing lens? Where does it end? An artist we meet in the refugee camp spreads out his fingers, once broken in prison. I take hold of his eyes cast down. If I break into this moment, I become a thief, cracking open a lock. Even as an older man, a warrior, tells us, looking away out over a desert sun, go home, tell your Americans what you see here, our people, these camps, Shatta, Jabalia, and Palestine's Gaza. Desolate, parched throat dry, even without constant bombings. I can fly myself into safety with silence as the guards at the airport check my luggage for signs of resistance. I give no one away. Encoded notes, villages, names mailed home. I have no idea how to begin to tell what I've seen. I knock on doors, write letters, poems waiting to weep. A bomb splits open, shattering everything, shatters itself in the shattering. It bears the Star of David flag of Israel. It bears Made in the USA. Does it bear my name too? I'm going to read two more, and the next poem is also, there are some people I know who've been writing poems since October 2023, and I'm not one of them. It's been really hard for me to write a lot of poems about what's going on, but I've written a few, and trying to figure out what is the role of a writer and a poet in this moment, you know, and so I wrote this poem that's called I Will Not Write Another Eulogy. And it's also in reference sort of to poetry that becomes a eulogy. This is no eulogy. I will not name those murdered. There are too many limbs embedded in fragments of bombs traced back to US corporations, Boeing, Caterpillar, Lockheed Martin, and some disguised murderers. This is not my eulogy for children, women, men, or soldiers in Palestinian lands. I sit in California and rest in the turning of a sun, lowering over our hazy horizon. No waters have parted, no theology or science of how to be saved from pain. My life is not worth more than those swallowed up in the firestorms we make. This is no elegy, no lyric lamentations dispersed like wispy seeds of milkweed that we blow over graves. This is not a keening. I write to beg you, to throw your voice into Obama's drone, to cover yourself with leaves, become a warrior who digs deep into roots, ancient trees that carry secrets within the depths of our earth as though it were a heart. It's 15, am I okay for one more? Or? Okay, I'm going to just read one more and try to, it's a little different switch of feeling. So, I like to write poems after other poets, and this is called Reasons for Surviving, and it's after Ocean Vuong, whose poetry I just adore. So it's Reasons for Surviving, and it's sort of a list poem. Long summer days that spread through my body as if desire hums. Fireflies circling my hands. My beloved's face lit with wonder. The bells of an ice cream truck in summer. Toasted almond ice cream. That I walked New York streets like a stalker of murals. That I entangled myself into a gaggle of people crossing 53rd Street against the light. That I didn't stumble. coffee with a scent of chocolate, an empty house, radio blaring the top 40 songs, a game of punchball, a home run. Because my mother feared falling, because I stood beneath the bridge, because I caught her tremblings, that she was driving me to college far from her grasp, because I knew I could balance on the edge of my books, because I could return to the calm bay, that I felt my mom and I were flying over the Chesapeake Bay, that I couldn't stop talking about heights, that the car didn't swerve off the bridge, because the red brick building of my childhood spit me out, that I found luminescence in the high ceilings in a library, that I didn't need to hear the word forgive to be forgiven, that the only gods I believe in tremble in paper dust, that when I drove into San Francisco, fog rolled into my dreams. Because the night Harvey Milk was killed, I decided to be an engine. Funerals can still pain my cracked flesh. Because I returned to the red brick buildings of my youth with poetry. Because I found songs trapped in my roller skate wheels. Because words in my lost notebooks stick to my eyes. Because I discovered I don't need more deaths for inspiration. Endless winter nights that pull my body to earth as if desire whispers. Thank you.
Is this yours? Carla, is this yours? Oh, yeah. That was one heck of a set. I've always been impressed by your work, but that seemed particularly acute. Thank you so much for that. And I also remembered what I was going to say, which is that the Right Now projects tend to bring some clarity about walls that are between people, and that politics tends these days to be, rather than a practice of mutual support, a practice of making sure those walls exist so that the smaller communities can be better manipulated. And I really think in retrospect that a lot of the online poetry readings that happened during the pandemic and after may well help save the world, which I know sounds huge, but I don't disbelieve it. Anyway, I actually met Yeva at a live reading. When I used to co-curate the live readings at Bird and Beckett, periodically we'd get Yeva, and then we ran into each other at other readings, and it's been going on for a fair few years now. And I have been a big fan for pretty much since that first time I heard you read. And of course, we stared at each other through thumbnails a bit over the last couple of years, but it's been a long road, and I'm always blown away by your work. So please welcome Yeva Johnson up to this room. Come on.
That was so awesome. Okay. As I usually do, I speak a little bit at the beginning, and then it's just poems. I want you to get as many poems as possible. No banter from me. Aside from this, I'm incredibly honored to be here to read tonight at tonight's Poem Jam and to be reading with Carla. It's like, I love Carla's poetry, and I knew this is so great. And I love Kim, and I love Kim's poetry. And this is like such a thrill. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for doing this with me. So My little preamble is just, in this time of chaos, corruption, violence, and despair around the globe, there's much work to be done towards justice and peace. Even so, joy remains a necessity. So I have brought some poems, personal and political, and I hope they bring you some joy today as we begin 2025. As I usually do, I start and end with music. And yeah. So I'll just put this down here. Okay. This first poem is Incantation for Black Lives to Remain in Focus After the Outrage Fades. With gratitude to the community of writers and Carrie Moore. O wise one, we call on your essence. We cleave to justice, but find only feather pillows after the owl's flight, a shifting enemy. We seek, O Mother, a path to prevent more deaths, more suffering. Let not our heart's desires immolate on scattered alliances fanned by misbegotten echoes of promises already broken. This time, let the sword strike at the root to end this senseless cycle. This poem is called Biomythography Eclectic Sing Sing, and it is after Don McLean, Audre Lorde, and Aga Shahid Ali. I had no whiskey, vermouth, or gin, so I swilled rum fast, breath. On that day of music's death, I inhaled deep one unsung last breath. Call it manspreading when there's no room on the bus, but in verbal form, we lament his dumb, unasked breath. It's just a short ride away, but during this pandemic, to spy the Pacific shore at day's end, the settings, a sun-vast breath. Our government crumbles beneath lies and corruption. Repeat shocks in the Senate because no bums aghast, breath. The conductor lifts her baton, directs me to hold that F-sharp for 5 full measures. I raise my flute and take a huge one, tasked breath. Whether strawberry, apple, peach, pear, or plum, I'm allergic to all. My tongue first tingles, then becomes numb, smashed breath. If Aretha Franklin could return for just one last soulful number, she'd open her mouth and stun. We'd have one asked breath. May we be filled with gratitude, O bringer of life, for each occasion an instance of a fun past breath. And this is Coconut Oil Revival, after Eve L. Ewing's Shea Butter Manifesto. Shoulder, nose, and space between the toes wriggle with delight as I lather organic coconut oil all over my body after a shower. Soothed by the water from melted mountaintops which flowed to lakes and rivers that supplied my shower head, I smell delicious enough to eat. In the bathroom's steam, I inhale and exhale the call of the sea, crashing waves and echoes in a shell that utter, I love you, I love you, I love you, in plangent tones from my mother, my father, my ancestors. Their scents linger in the sweet coconut mixed with the sting of salty sea kelp that becomes my new skin. Okay. This poem is called Verbum Sap, or Enough Said, When Enough is Enough. And I'll do a little music after and then do more. 1. It is the time for lies to die. Speak not of go back where you came from. Speak not of order, somebody's legal, somebody's not. Speak not of bullets in the back and generations of broken treaties. Speak not of black and brown and person of color lives mattering. It is the time for lies to die. Speak not of the second sex. Speak not of gender as a many-splendored thing. Speak not of we're out, we're proud, we're not going anywhere. Speak not of the power and privacy to make decisions about one's own body. It is the time for lies to die. Speak not of democracy. Speak not of human rights. Speak not of every vote counts. Speak not of a marketplace that sells both bodies and minds as it depletes the spirit. 2. It is the time for lies to die. This handbasket, though finely woven, has become unraveled, fuel for flames as we are jettisoned down to the underworld for a nation built on lies. For life, liberty, and slavery cannot stand in the same place and time. This nation was not built in a day just so the entire world could watch as it burns. No revolution, just genocide streamed live. 3. It is the time for lies to die. It is the time for lies to die. It is the time for lies to die. Enough is enough. Okay, now we get to some fun. We're in a library. We're going on. We're getting there. What? The poems are written over the last few years, and one of them was written this week, so it just varies. This is one I've read before. For some people will know it. It's fun, and I'm doing it for multiple reasons, but we're in the library. Keep it in mind. It is called Boom Boom. Heartbeat, every dream I never let extinguish. Ventricular sac, my family. From carotid blood flow to mitral valve, that crush on the cute librarian still beats under the aortic arch. The right atrium is where I wear my rose-colored glasses, and there are bits of my sleeve plastered all over the pericardium. Despite a septum, there's a softness to the whole enterprise. Electrical impulses keep that tricuspid valve flapping, even with the soft, small plaques that push me toward the cliff of death. From the superior vena cava all the way to the apex, I always feel the love, the love, the love, the love. And this is for the women I have yet to meet, with apologies to those I've mistaken for her. With gratitude to Carrie Marr. I shared my belief that at least one person in the universe could understand, accept, and love me all at the same time when I confessed my hope that it might be you. You looked at me with pity, honored, said sorry it wasn't you. I handed you my phone number thinking I was unique until so many other women said they had done the same for the hottest barista in Berkeley. And then I felt shame. I didn't mean to objectify you. I loaned you more than 20 of my favorite books of all time, from J. California Cooper's Family to Audre Lorde's Zami, A New Spelling of My Name. Do you even like to read? I played a song composed just for you and gifted poems with my heart's secret longing tucked inside. Their melodies and verse passed through you, nothing to grasp. I mailed you the most heartfelt crush letters, every last one on UNICEF stationery, each stamp applied with love. Did you recycle them? Now I take back the love I've showered indiscriminately on so many fleeting infatuations as I develop the wisdom to recognize the potential for real romance. And the very sharp people will, if you were listening earlier to the hustle, this poem is called Bringer of Life. And it's with gratitude to Otis Redding and Anastasia Renee. The daughter of 3 powerful mothers never lacked for adventure. About 9:30, they were swimming past a rock at the quay, Iamaja and Octavia Butler's fledgling herself. As the azure waters swelled, their female offspring plopped on the copper sand, gasping for breath, crawling and clawing her way into the world. She was no Athena, no Anyanwu, no Oya. She was the child of the Black Venus of Willendorf. She was no Athena, nor Sekhmet, crawling and clawing her way into the world about 9:30 when she spied Octavia Butler's fledgling flirting at the water's edge with Iamaja. She was gasping for breath and was so in awe, dipping and diving her way through the world, sustained only by mother love. She was no Athena, no Isis nor Bastet. Instead, a diasporic African waterwoman on life's adventure and the daughter of 3 powerful mothers. And this will be the last poem, and it is called Revolutionary Dream Call, after Nikki Giovanni and for Awan. And I will play a little music at the end, and then I'll be done. If only every night as Earth spins, and those of us lucky enough to have a safe place to lay our heads could wake up from dreams of peace and do something. Imagine another spin around the planetary axis. Another part of the world wakes from slumber, and somebody, somewhere, stops a fight, smiles at a child. If only one dream comes to mind, or if there's only one thing you can do in a day, do something good. Imagine waking up to make something better for someone, somehow, some way, if only for yourself or a stranger. If only the earth spun, if only we woke up, not just dreaming and spinning and hoping and pining for better, but we actually were making reality the fodder for our dreams rather than the other way around. Every day then becomes a sacred instrument of the possible. Every earthly turn, every revolution meaningful, meaning we could if we tried, if we did something. We could turn this thing we understand as caste or capitalism or racism or patriarchy or hatred of anyone different in any way, or nepotism, or excess privilege, or control, or any tilted scale. We could turn this thing around, change one thing for good, to incite joy, to increase happiness, to create understanding, to swathe us in love. And the more days and nights we spend on the earth, the greater the gratitude, the more wondrous the dream made from the dirt and the sweat of our efforts, whether singly, in small groups, or great crowds. Imagine, do, get up, make the reality a dream, the dream a reality. Thank you.
This is always too much fun. So, there's supposed to be a third reader. And I'm going to say that generally, when it doesn't work out, it's either something to do with weird traffic, or I've not communicated effectively. And either thing at any time in this city is a possibility, as you all probably know. But before we walked out the house, my partner said, you really should bring a set, just in case you have to read. And lo and behold. Patch the walls with any other word for hope. The problem, friend, we both agree, it's probably better that way. Explain to me the difference between consequence and punishment, how feral we've become, but you can make anything out of a poem. There are so many moving parts. These aren't cracks, they're fold lines, evidence of resilience, the hinge, this door, this cellar. We knew the words before we knew the thing. We learned them from a clap song, from a string figure, other things we knew in other ways. Some kind of softness in the eyes, or the taste of our own fist, not made of anger, but so it would fit in a mouth, in our mouth, so that we could understand. We still might. The book fold, the turn of 45 degrees, the controlled collapse that prevents a break. If nothing else, these things that are too big for words, we learn them by taste. We mend them gradually and with audacity. I want to hear the story again. Walk backwards uphill on a kaleidoscope film strip. Not because I don't know or understand what happened, but because I do. These are seeds of community, or the mycelium maybe, as this narrowing, this clog of history limits possibility we know when conditions favor probability, just after the rain, and we can regrow. The press of quiet at the edge of firelight, these drawstring days, ceremonial spices, protection after the battle of trees. In this place we burrow through chill sunlight, find self maybe, find people to care for. Our place is misdirection, a palm days, the mystery of evergreens, preserved fish, pickled beans, gingerbread lobsters. The songs we wrote for them, the stories that will be told. This is the time of legends. There is no other. Most of these poems aren't really dry yet, if you know what I mean. They date from roughly middle of December till now. The water level in the marsh is high. Egret, elegant on an offering to the gods of the wetlands, a shredded tire, a dead hot water heater. We hold ourselves light this round. We hunt the rainbow as the month closes in. It may be winter, but there are bitter months coming, the cold moon, the bone moon. And even though the light broke through the storm off east, we took some joy at our faith in a rainbow. Maybe not today or soon, but sometime. I was a little stunned. There became this rumor that I don't write political poems. Thank you for the laughter. I really appreciate it, because I could never figure that out. Because periodically, I do write about sunlight, but read deeper. But also every once in a while I come out with something like this, which is sort of unabashed. 16 years shy of 500 past, DeSoto thieved 200 pounds of freshwater pearls, and the Lady of Kofitashikui, making this a year of transformation. 300 years later, the people, wrenched like a healthy tooth from a bloody jawbone, force-marched halfway to here, expected to sever their promises to that place and to each other, and we did not. 216 years more, nose pressed against transforming weather, against a cold winter, years and miles from that home. I tell you now that I will wear freshwater pearls, will take the healing, will whisper old names of place to water, stands of trees, thumb-polished hills, healing stones, and tea weeds. I tell you now that as I set my feet against the now storm, claim center, that my love strength is great enough to take part in what comes next. No one here is living in the ruins of a punished culture. We're not subsisting on what can be clawed from the rubble on this and every other morning in this place. We hold our hands palm open and sing our evolving visions into a pink sky. We dance our complicated futures on rippling creek water. I've muddled the days again. It's hard to pick out a specific noodle. Is this the thin end of the year, or was that last month? Chaos, hope, storm returning, equipment in the playground where we balanced intuition and action, and now I just shiver like birth spasms. Rain outside. Is it cold or is it Friday? Cuddled in with thrash metal drum tracks pulled from the songs and pine smoke tea, waiting, caught between cones and candles, and we're still wrestling with the latest weaving. The body is a more subtle clockwork these days, rewriting insults as identity. It's a place where the parallels cross, becoming strange, a trick of reflection, a learned collision, an inheritance from shifting genes and rules, seining for the new plague and future centuries. They will know what went wrong with a tedious clarity. Movement in short mechanical jerks, life become ticks, some learned from malfunction, some fashion, escapement, interrupted momentum, erratic equations held to the breast. It's no small thing to construct a verb from first principles. All of the staring at the horizons, the cryptic puzzles, the weaving of bark wreaths. I carry scraps of trust, rolled and held in place by a thick blue rubber band, and I wear my grandfather's cologne. Actually, that's not true. I wear the memory of it, and the sound of quarters like a drum line or the quiet of fishing. There are protocols, you know. Some think we're just out there plucking insects off branches and drinking beer, but I only drink maybe twice a year. There's an essential geometry to this personal myth-making. You have to know which verb you need, the one you don't have, the punk of it, the places it glows, where it cries, its failures of character. This is serious business. I'm going to finish with this one. In January, we roll in stars, all cold and edges and the hope of feeling. The dance moon of cold, sing wet days sharpened again into the narrow end of an arbitrary decision of a year, make ink from the grounds of medicine we've taken, thread a needle that we will call reclaiming, and pull these cut edges of this place close enough to stitch. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I have wanted these two essentially alone on a stage for a while. And I think we all need to put a bit of energy into manifesting Carla's book, because I believe that there are people who need the things that you've said tonight. And as always, celebrating Yeva's work. Another round of applause for our fantastic features. More still for John, who makes this all really possible every month. And also for Kenny, who stands in for the entire AV department right now. I'm very aware that I'm blessed. They really let me get away with a lot, and I appreciate it. Thank you all.